Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Save Infinity. In this video, I just wanted to do like a quick little chat on the idea of, I don't even know what you would call it, but I guess it's just during one of my awakening experiences that I've had, this whole idea of like the cycle of, I guess, humanity or Earth or just this 3D Romley experience. I'm not sure what you would call it, but just like a thing, like an idea, I guess, or concept that kind of like came through to me that I thought would be interesting to share is this idea that, we are, infinite eternal beings, etc., etc. But that also, humanity is like in this cycle of, growth and regrowth and kind of, goes in and out of different periods and such. And so it felt like it came to that there's like a cycle almost, whether it's like the alignment of the stars or, in the planets or what have you. But it felt like, I don't know, and if it's around like 1,000 years or 2,000 years or how long the period cycle is, but it felt like around that sort of time. I'd say around like 1,000 to 3,000 years sort of thing. Like that is the cycle period. And that we go through cycles of kind of being in the light and then being in the dark, or like being in a state of remembrance and knowing and then in a state of like forgetting. And it almost felt like that what we do is we eventually, and that kind of felt like that's part of the shift that we're coming up to, that, so many people are talking about and such like that, is that we're shifting back into the period of light, or shifting back into the period of knowing and remembering. And it felt like that when we like kind of live in that period, civilization's a lot more fun, that's for sure, because we have a lot more remembering and knowing. So we have a lot more, abilities and things like that we're able to tap into. I guess thinking of kind of like stories and stuff that you hear from the times of Atlantis and stuff like that sort of abilities and things like that. But yeah, it felt like a period of when we go through a period of like knowing and remembering, and everything's a bit more like heavenly and wonderful, I guess you could say, and a bit more balanced and in order. And we kind of go through that sort of period for a while, but after a while, because it's like, what like my thought is, why don't we just always stay in that period? That sounds great and wonderful. But, apparently after, 1,000 years or 2,000 years or however long it is, eventually it's kind of like, whether it be our souls or just the human species itself or how it works. But eventually we just get to a point where, living in that sort of state of almost heavenly perfection gets to a point of being a bit like boring and mundane, and we're not really learning or growing anything anymore, and it just all gets a bit stagnant, and and you kind of like reach the peak of everything you can do and everything you can explore, and so it all just gets a bit, and so then we start entering this period of like darkness, or period of not knowing and forgetting who we are and forgetting about our innate powers and God consciousness and abilities and things like that. And so we go through this period of forgetting, almost as like a way to kind of re-spruce up the experience and the possibilities for humanity. Almost like if you remember everything and know everything, like, then what do you do? What do you invent? What do you create? When everything's already been invented and created and you've already explored it all, or what have you. Or if you already kind of like know everything, and we're all like interconnected, and so, there's no like mystery or things in that way. So it's kind of like we go through this period of forgetting for a couple of thousand years or 1,000 years or whatever have you, almost to like re-explore and re-find ourselves and recreate new things from a different angle, or invent things from a different angle, or just experiencing the experience of life and reality just from a new angle, almost giving it like a fresh up, and different like soul growth experiences and things like that you can get from a period of living in the dark or not remembering and such. But then, you know, eventually as we like, you know, go through that phase and we clock back into a period of knowing and remembering again, and that shift through each period as well is like a difference and a transition and, you know, a new journey in itself. So I do kind of feel like if such a thing is true, that we are like coming up to the brink of shifting back into a state of like remembering and knowing, back into that state of light and back into living in a more heavenly experience, I guess, almost like returning to the Garden of Eden, as you could say. You know, as they talk about how we like left the Garden of Eden, and then it's almost, you know, the vibe that it kind of feels like. And I feel like it also ties in a little bit too with like the Hopi prophecies and other prophecies and such, was it the Mayan calendar and things like that, about, you know, the world ending and stuff around 2012 or things like that. I feel like that could have also been, you know, maybe just kind of flagging that whole idea of it's not necessarily that the world's going to end and everything just, you know, disappears or explodes or something, but maybe just that cycle, that period of us being in the darkness and forgetting and not knowing our true innate nature, is ending, and then we're like going through this shift into a new state of remembering like who and what we truly are, and like what our, you know, interconnectedness to the whole universe really is, you know, and our own innate like power and abilities and such like that. We're slowly just kind of transitioning back into remembering and stuff, and through that then our ways of experiencing life, reality, and the ways our society runs and such will also start to transition as well, is just how it kind of felt. You know, I guess I feel like it sounds similar to how there's like, you know, certain theories and stuff as well that, you know, there was like a great reset period, and that even 10,000 years ago there was civilizations, but it's since been, you know, forgotten or lost to history or whatever's happened. It almost feels like we did go through this period of entering into the darkness again, where we kind of started from scratch, not quite cavemen, but, you know, we were like just kind of living in, you know, literally starting from scratch with just real like basic inventions and, you know, basic shelters and things like that. And then we've slowly evolved again up to these peaker civilizations. You know, it feels like there's these cycles and such that we kind of go through and ebb and flow through, and that it's all part of the process. So that's cool and interesting to think about. You know, it felt like it's kind of just the way things happen, and it's just the evolution of, you know, human species and like creating new species and evolving, you know, life from, you know, one form into a higher form and stuff like that. And that Earth is kind of like used as that sort of, you know, birthing ground for new life and for consciousness to grow and evolve through these cycles that it goes through. It's kind of how it felt. You know, the whole idea of us kind of like being seeds in the dark, and then we sprout up. Kind of like we have been seeds in the dark for this little while, and now we're starting to sprout up into the other side, into the sunshine and, you know, the blue skies and fresh air, is kind of what it felt like, of this shift that we're going through, entering back into a state of remembrance and knowing and understanding our true innate nature and who and what we really are, and how that connects to, you know, the idea of God and the greater universe, and, you know, other beings that, you know, may live out on other planets and such like that. So yeah, that's kind of cool and fun to think about, I feel. And kind of, I feel, at least makes the whole journey that humanity has been on so far maybe a little more palatable, that it's not always just going to be so disastrous and treacherous as it has been in some instances, and so stressful and, you know, a bit of like, what even is, you know, what are we doing? And that instead we get more connected to a state of understanding and, yeah, just knowing the path and things we're on and what we're doing and how that all connects to everything. And yeah, And I guess, like I said as well, I feel like it does make a bit of sense as well when you do think about, you know, being like infinite, eternal beings. You could see how things could maybe get a little stagnant if we were just in that one state of knowing and all that for forever. You know, coming back down into this state of forgetting our true nature and our, you know, abilities and connectedness to the universe and things like that almost helps us like rediscover ourselves, redefine ourselves, you know, see things from new angles, learn things from new angles, invent and create from new angles, almost like how the story of creation almost occurs and happens. You know, we spend this time in darkness recreating things, or, you know, essentially everything already is created anyway. We're more just kind of tapping into a new pathway or taking a new direction. But, you know, but it kind of gives us like a new stream of infinity to explore and envelop in. So kind of, you know, the idea that we all have once been like very all-knowing, you know, God type like beings that are, you know, highly evolved and with all these sort of wondrous abilities and stuff like that. And then we also go through these stages of, you know, essentially pretending to be human, as in order to just have this new experience and way of life. And yeah. And then, you know, as we shift and move into a more state of remembering and knowing, that it's like all these things that we've, you know, created and explored and found and learnt and experienced from that period of darkness, we kind of get to really envelop and integrate into our new period of knowing and being in a way that's just a lot more like heavenly and fantastic, which is cool to think about. You know, I feel like it kind of does make sense too with the whole idea of people talking more about, you know, in the future possibly being able to, you know, have more interaction with beings from other planets and stuff like that, and having a more open contact type vibe, is, you know, part of this shift of us kind of, you know, reconnecting back to the greater universe and like who and what we truly are. And so, yeah, I guess just to say, like, you know, if the future and stuff like that does start getting a bit, you know, a bit different, and, you know, there's some changes and things happening, that it all just seems to be part of, you know, a natural process that humanity and Earth tends to go through, as like a state of evolution for consciousness and, you know, new species and things like that. Just all part of, you know, the grand story of creation, you know, the never-ending story, as they say. Yeah, again, I'm not sure, you know, not sure how true it is at all, but, you know, the whole idea of these cycles of, you know, like light and dark, or knowing and remembering and forgetting and such, that we kind of cycle through for humanity. But I feel like it does, you know, does make a little bit of sense, especially when you do look back at some of the ideas of history and forgotten civilizations and things like that. So, you know, so yeah, definitely does feel like it's a, you know, a time to be alive. That's for sure. Who knows what the future holds and where it's going to take us, but exciting to see. All right, guys, I'll leave that one there for now, but yeah, hope you have a lovely, wonderful day, and sending you so much peace, love, light, and blessings as always.